The image is familiar. The stage, the lights, the crowd of tens of thousands stretching back as far as the cameras can reach. LALISA Manobal, Lisa to the world, commanding every inch of space as if she was born to own it. We've seen that version of her many times. But here's what we haven't seen. The version of her that exists when the stage goes dark. When the last camera shuts off and the driver pulls away from the venue. The version that moves through private rooms in Hollywood, sitting at dinners that don't make headlines, building friendships that never surface on Instagram, navigating a life that exists almost entirely outside the frame fans are allowed to see. Because here's the thing about Lisa Manobal, the version you know, that's the one she chose to show you. What happens in the private corridors of Hollywood's most elite world? At the gatherings, the after parties, the creative rooms where the real conversations happen? That's a different story entirely. Today, we're going inside it. Chapter 1. The Woman Who Bought the Blueprint. For most K-pop artists who attempt to cross over to Western markets, there is a recognizable pattern. They arrive as guests. They perform. They give carefully managed interviews in carefully managed settings. And then they return. Back to the infrastructure that made them. Back to the label that controls the narrative. Back to the machine. The Western crossover becomes a promotional event, not a life decision. Lisa Manobal did not follow that pattern. In February of 2024, she founded LALISA, her own management and creative company, built entirely outside the traditional K-pop system that had shaped her career since she was a teenager in Bangkok. The name is intentional. Loud is not a vanity project. It is not a side venture or a hobby. It is the structural architecture of a fundamentally different kind of career, one that she controls. 2 months later, in April 2024, came the announcement that made the industry take notice. Lisa and Loud formalized a landmark partnership with RCA Records, one of the most prestigious labels in American music, home to Doja Cat, SZA, Pink, and Justin Timberlake, among others. The terms of the deal were remarkable by any standard. Lisa would retain full ownership of her master recordings. In an era when the masters debate has defined careers and broken artists for generations, when even the most celebrated musicians have fought bitter public battles to reclaim ownership of their own work, Lisa walked in as a founder, not a signed artist, and secured the terms that most artists spend decades trying to win. At 27 years old, on her first major Western deal, what this meant in practical terms was a fundamental reframe of her position in the industry. She was not talent being managed by a corporation. She was a CEO who had secured distribution infrastructure for her own intellectual property. The distinction is enormous, and people who understand how this business actually works recognized it immediately. When her debut studio album, Alter Ego, arrived in February 2025, it carried something you genuinely cannot manufacture: the unmistakable energy of an artist who owns what she makes. The collaborators on that record, Doja Cat, Rosalia, Tyla, Future, Megan Thee Stallion, Ray, were not there to legitimize Lisa in Western eyes. They were there because Lisa had, over the preceding years, earned the kinds of relationships that make those features happen organically. And then, on March 2nd, 2025, came the moment that closed whatever debate remained about her standing. Lisa stood on the stage of the Academy Awards, the Oscars, and performed. Not as a guest, not as a fill-in act, as a headlining performer, making history as the first K-pop artist ever to appear on that stage. The performance, a tribute to the music of the James Bond film series alongside Doja Cat and Ray, was executed with the precision and confidence of someone who had been building toward exactly this moment for years. There is a difference between a K-pop star who visits Hollywood and a K-pop star who belongs to Hollywood. That night at the Dolby Theater was the moment the distinction collapsed entirely. What Lisa Manobal had done by the spring of 2025 was not crossover. She had restructured the terms of the conversation entirely. Chapter 2. The room she walked into. There is a version of celebrity that is purely transactional. You attend the event. You get photographed. You leave. And for many artists attempting Western crossovers, that has historically been the experience. Celebrated from the outside, but peripheral to the actual social fabric of Hollywood. Something different appears to have happened with Lisa. When the production of The White Lotus Season 3 brought her to Thailand in early 2024, it didn't place her in a space where working actors would politely accommodate a music star stepping into their world. It placed her in a genuine ensemble, one of the most critically scrutinized casts in prestige television, where she had to hold her own under the heat of a Thai production and the creative pressure of one of HBO's most demanding series. By all available accounts, she did exactly that. At the Los Angeles premiere in February 2025, her co-star Amy Lou Wood, whose performance in the season was among its most acclaimed, spoke to The Hollywood Reporter about Lisa's work. Wood said she had been genuinely impressed. The storyline Lisa shared with Thai actor Tame Thapthimthong, Wood noted, was one of her personal favorites in the entire season. She described Lisa as lovely, open, and fully present in her scenes. These are not the words of someone being diplomatically gracious to a famous castmate. These are the words of one working actor recognizing the craft of another. And the White Lotus connection turned out to extend well beyond the production itself. When the 2025 Met Gala arrived in May, something quietly revealing happened. Lisa appeared on the red carpet alongside White Lotus cast members Walton Goggins, Patrick Schwarzenegger, and Amy Lou Wood. Reports at the time indicated they had arrived together, traveled in the same car. For those who understand the social architecture of an event like the Met Gala, that detail is not small. Who you arrive with at fashion's most coded gathering carries meaning. It signals genuine social connection, not managed proximity. The picture that emerged was of a real ensemble friendship, one forged in the heat and intensity of a long Thai production and carried forward into the actual social world of Hollywood. Alongside this, there is the broader fashion world axis of Lisa's social landscape. As a Louis Vuitton global ambassador since July 2024, she has become a fixture at Paris Fashion Week in ways that go significantly beyond professional appearances. Reports and photographs from multiple seasons have placed her in deeply embedded contexts. Sitting alongside Ana de Armas, in the front row at the Louis Vuitton Fall-Winter Show, attending private after-parties with Squid Game and the glory star Hoyeon Jung, moving through the private social world of the LVMH fashion dynasty in ways that suggest genuine personal integration rather than brand tourism. Then there is the reported connection, widely covered across multiple years, to Frederick Arnault, the son of LVMH chairman Bernard Arnault. The two were first linked publicly in 2022, when Frederick attended a BLACKPINK concert in Los Angeles. By 2023, photographs of Paris dinners together had surfaced. Reports of travel and private gatherings followed. As recently as early 2026, the pair were reportedly seen together during Fashion Week in Paris. As of mid-2026, the status of that relationship has become less clear, according to reports in the entertainment press, though Lisa herself has declined to comment publicly on the details, speaking instead, in her most recent major interview, about the exhaustion of having her private life surveilled at all. The social pattern that emerges from tracking her movements across these contexts is not that of a celebrity receiving polite hospitality from Hollywood. It is the pattern of someone who has built genuine relationships across prestige television, fashion, music, and European elite culture simultaneously that persist independent of professional cycles. Which raises the question, what do those relationships look like from the inside? Chapter 3. The private architecture of her life. So what does the actual private life of someone in this position look like day to day? There are verified details, and when you assemble them, they tell a coherent story. The Beverly Hills home is perhaps the most literal marker of permanence. In 2024, Lisa purchased a property in one of Los Angeles's most exclusive residential neighborhoods. A home described at the time as reimagined with what was called a contemporary take on European-inspired living. The detail about the aesthetic is worth sitting with for a moment. A contemporary take on European-inspired living. That is not the interior design choice of someone setting up a temporary base in Los Angeles. That is the signature of someone who has absorbed the culture she has been moving through and then imprinted it on the space where she lives. Beverly Hills is not where you live if you're visiting Hollywood. It is where you live if Hollywood is actually home. And then there is the Paris dimension of her life, which may ultimately be as significant as the Los Angeles one. Multiple years of reports and sightings have established Paris as a genuine gravitational pull in Lisa's private world, not for scheduled performances or obligatory brand appearances, but as a city she returns to with something that looks, from the available evidence, like genuine personal attachment. She has been photographed at private Louis Vuitton events, at after-parties she posted to Instagram with what appeared to be unguarded warmth, in settings that carry the feeling of someone who belongs there rather than someone passing through. The Vanity Fair Summer 2026 cover story, one of the most significant Western media moments of her career, offered a glimpse of what the private cost of all this actually looks like. In that conversation, rather than dwelling on her historic achievements, Lisa spoke about something more vulnerable, the persistent invasiveness of public attention. She described past encounters with obsessive fans who had waited outside her home, who had attempted to access her private transport. She spoke about the longing, recurring, genuine, not manufactured for press sympathy, to simply be a normal person. A girl from Thailand. That phrase carries weight because it appears so consistently across her public statements over the years. It is not a line from a marketing brief. It is something she returns to in different languages and different contexts whenever the conversation gets personal enough to require a real answer. And then there is the Always LALISA documentary, which premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in September 2026 and was shot over the course of an entire year by director Soo Kim. The official description released by TIFF offers a striking portrait, a film about someone who, for the first time since childhood, steps away from BLACKPINK for a period of independence, confronting the fear and pressure of a solo career while actively trying to protect a personal life that exists beyond the spotlight. What the documentary reportedly captured is something quietly remarkable. Lisa, according to accounts from the production, called her childhood friends in Bangkok, not her management team, not her publicist, not her brand contacts, and told them simply, the cameras are coming, and she wanted them in the film exactly as they always are with each other. No staging, no rehearsal. The director spoke about wanting to capture Lisa in what she described as her resting state, the person she is with family and lifelong friends, far from the performance of global superstardom. The film runs in 3 languages, English, Thai, and Korean. That choice is itself a kind of map of her interior world. 3 languages for 3 registers of a life that spans cultures in ways that most people can barely imagine navigating, let alone inhabiting naturally. What this private architecture suggests is a person who has built a life with real geographical and emotional roots in multiple places simultaneously, Los Angeles, Paris, Bangkok, and who is actively trying to protect the parts of that life that belong only to her. Chapter 4. The Insider Verdict. There is a way that Hollywood receives outsiders. The red carpet welcome is one thing. The actual perception inside the rooms where decisions are made is another entirely. So how does Hollywood actually see Lisa Manobal in 2026? The evidence points in one direction, as a peer. Consider the Golden Globes appearance in January 2026. Lisa arrived at the 83rd ceremony as a presenter, wearing a translucent Jacquemus gown that generated immediate fashion coverage. But the fashion wasn't the story. The invitation was, the Golden Globes does not extend presenter slots to celebrities who are simply in a promotional cycle. It extends them to people who are considered members of the community, whose presence adds legitimacy to the room rather than requiring contextual explanation. Then there is the 2026 Met Gala Host Committee. Lisa joined as a member alongside co-chairs Beyoncé, Nicole Kidman, and Venus Williams, the first K-pop artist ever to hold that position in the event's history. Host committee membership at the Met Gala is not a brand deal you can purchase. It is conferred as a judgment about genuine cultural standing. To be included in that company at 29 years old is not a milestone. It is a classification. It says, this person is not a visitor to this world. This person is part of it. And then there is what happened on June 12, 2026 in Los Angeles. The FIFA World Cup opening ceremony is one of the most watched entertainment events on Earth. The selection of performers reflects a global cultural calculation about who represents the present moment, who carries enough weight across enough cultures to open the world's largest sporting event. That selection process chose Lisa to perform alongside Brazilian singer Anitta and Nigerian artist Rima on the track Goals, becoming the first female K-pop artist and the first Thai artist ever to stand on that stage. That is a designation that comes from people who are thinking at a planetary scale. Alongside these institutional markers, there are the creative ones that may be even more telling about where she actually stands within the entertainment community. In April 2026, Lisa appeared at Anima's headlining set on Coachella's main stage to perform their collaboration Bad Angel, a track they had released just days before the festival. It was her 4th Coachella appearance overall, but what was notable about this particular one was its character. This was not a solo album cycle activation. This was not a BLACKPINK platform. This was a genuine creative collaboration between Lisa and an Italian-American electronic artist, built on what appears to be a real artistic relationship rather than a commercially engineered crossover. The performance, built around futuristic CGI visuals and an angel aesthetic, reportedly generated over 1 million mentions on social media within hours of the show ending. The industry shorthand for moments like that is organic. And organic, in the heavily managed world of global celebrity, is the rarest possible quality. What all of these moments share, the Golden Globes, the Met Gala Committee, the World Cup, the Anima collaboration, is that they are not things that happened to Lisa because of her fame. They are things that happened because of her standing. The distinction matters enormously. Fame gets you invited to things. Standing means the room changes slightly when you walk in. Chapter 5. What the private life actually reveals. We've now moved through the external markers: the home, the social circle, the institutional recognition, the creative collaborations. We've assembled as much of the picture as the available evidence allows. But there is a question underneath all of it that the facts alone cannot fully answer. What is LALISA Manoboal actually like when no one is watching? The public record gives us fragments, and when you hold them together, something emerges. There is the director of Always LALISA describing a woman who wanted her childhood friends on camera, not because it was strategically compelling, but because those people know her. Really know her. The version of her that existed before any of this. There is the Vanity Fair cover story that chose, at the apex of her visibility, to tell the story not of Lisa the icon, but of Lisa the person, someone who finds the surveillance exhausting, who describes herself as an ordinary girl from Thailand with a kind of persistence that suggests she is not performing humility, but actually fighting to hold on to something real. There is the Amy Lou Wood comment at the White Lotus premiere. The specificity of it, the warmth of it, the way it describes someone who was lovely and open rather than impressive or professional. Lovely and open are not words you use about a calculated performer. They are words you use about someone you actually like. And then there is the structural story of Loud, and the RCA deal, and the Beverly Hills home, and the TIFF documentary. The story of a person who, rather than waiting for the world to offer her a position, quietly built one. Who looked at the architecture of the industry and decided to own the infrastructure, rather than rent space inside someone else's. That particular quality, the strategic intelligence, the long-term thinking, the willingness to make unglamorous structural decisions that only pay off years later, that is something Hollywood recognizes because it is rare even in people who grew up inside the system. In someone who came from outside it, as a teenager from Chiang Rai, Thailand, it is extraordinary. Here is what the private life reveals about LALISA Manoboal's long-term vision. She is not building toward a moment. She is building toward a position in which she is fully autonomous, creatively, commercially, personally, in multiple cultural registers simultaneously. She owns her masters. She has her own label. She has prestige television credentials. She has Hollywood friendships. She has Las Vegas dates. She has a Netflix romantic comedy and a second Netflix film in development. She has a documentary premiering at TIFF. She will return to BLACKPINK by her own consistent account, because that group is genuinely part of who she is. And the residency, Viva LALISA, at the Coliseum at Caesars Palace in November 2026, the first Las Vegas residency by a K-pop artist in history. 4 shows that sold out in under 10 minutes. That is perhaps the single most concentrated symbol of everything she has built. Las Vegas residencies are not awarded to visitors. They are awarded to artists who have demonstrated, over years, that they can sustain a draw powerful enough to fill a room repeatedly. Elvis had a Las Vegas residency. Celine Dion had one. Adele had one. These are not crossover acts. These are permanent fixtures of the culture. Lisa will become one in November. Now here is the question that no documentary, no cover story, no amount of verified reporting can fully resolve. The question that fans are still asking, and honestly that everyone watching closely is asking too. The Always LALISA documentary ends, by its own description, on the threshold of her return to BLACKPINK. That clock was always ticking. The solo year had a finish line. But the woman who crosses that finish line and rejoins the group in 2026 is structurally different from the one who left. She has owned her masters. She has starred in HBO prestige television and earned genuine peer respect for it. She has performed at the Oscars, presented at the Golden Globes, sat on the Met Gala host committee alongside Beyoncé. She has built a company. She has a home. She has a social world in Hollywood and Paris that exists entirely independent of her K-pop identity. What happens when someone with that kind of autonomous foundation returns to a collective structure? What does BLACKPINK look like to Lisa now? And what does Lisa look like to BLACKPINK? Nobody can answer that from the outside. And based on everything we've seen of the private Lisa, the person who calls childhood friends without ceremony, who aches for ordinariness even while achieving extraordinary things, who builds quietly and structurally rather than loudly, whatever the answer is, it will be handled with intention. In that way, perhaps the most revealing thing about Lisa's secret private life among Hollywood's elite is not the specific rooms she moves through. It's the fact that she built the doors herself. The story of LALISA Manoboal in 2026 is still being written. And that is precisely what makes it worth following. Every milestone we've covered in this video, The Loud launch, the RCA deal, the White Lotus acting debut, the Oscars, the Golden Globes, the World Cup. Opening ceremony, the Met Gala host committee, the TIFF documentary, the Las Vegas residency. Each one of these is a chapter in a story that has not finished yet. The full shape of what she is building will only be visible once we can see it from a distance. But the private dimension of that story, the Beverly Hills home built in a European aesthetic, the Bangkok friends who show up on camera just as they always were, the Paris dinners, the quiet longing for ordinariness, the documentary asking what all of this actually feels like from the inside. That dimension gives us something the public milestones can't. It gives us the person underneath the pioneer. And that, if you've been watching closely, turns out to be the most interesting part of the story. If you want to stay close to this journey as it develops, the Viva LALISA residency, the Always LALISA documentary release, and whatever comes next for BLACKPINK, make sure you're subscribed. We follow Lisa's story closely on this channel, and there is significantly more ahead.